a milestone moment for the Midwest for developing healthcare in the Midwest. Today we announced the strategic acquisition of a 44-acre site, 43.83 acres, 44 acres in Raheen, in the industrial park there, just off the motorway, to be part of the development of healthcare for the future for the region. This is a really important strategic site. Its location is exactly what we need it to be. It's 2 kilometres from the Dooradoyle site. It's a 28-minute ride from both Ennis and Nenagh. Sandra Broderick tells me they measured it exactly 28 minutes, both from Ennis and Nenagh, at one particular point in the middle of the field, well measured. So it's a really important strategic site, and it is the beginning now of how we can think about the development of healthcare services right across the region, now that we know we have this crucial site. So a really important site. The size of the site is quite important, 44 acres. Just to give a little context for that, St James's Hospital in Dublin, one of our largest hospitals, is 60 acres. The current site in Dooradoyle is 37 acres. Beaumont Hospital is 20 acres. Cork and Galway are 41, 42 acres. So a 44-acre site is a very, very sizable strategic site, and it will be one of the largest hospital campuses in the country. And of course, it will have that element, the opportunity to be a hospital over 2 sites, as is often the case around the UK and around Europe. So this is an incredibly strategic acquisition. I do want to thank in particular 3 public servants who have devoted an enormous time and skill to getting this site. And those are Joe Hoare, Brian O'Connell and Derek Tierney, who have worked together as a team with the HSE leadership, with the HSE regional leadership, but as the key people who have done the groundwork to acquire and develop this site. And I always want to recognise public service excellence where we have the opportunity to do that. The next steps now are, having acquired this site, I will be appointing a project board to develop a plan for me for delivery of healthcare services for this complete region. And of course, the acquisition of this site is a key cog in the development of that thinking, and so many different things. But what I want is a report to me later in 2026 on services for the whole region. Now, let me just go through some of that. Some of that we've already begun. For example, I've already begun to ask Sandra and Bernard about how we're going to deliver better services immediately in Ennis and Nenagh. In particular, I'm thinking of cancer infusion services. I do not want people from Clare or Tipperary to have to travel to Limerick to get cancer infusions, to get the routine treatments once they have been diagnosed and given a correct plan of treatment. They should be able to get that closer to home. Of course, already this year in the capital plan, there are significant commitments which are now underway in relation to additional beds and replacement beds, both in Nenagh and in Ennis. So that's 48 new beds in Ennis. In addition, in Ennis, of course, we're putting in two theatres, the equipment sterilisation equipment, facilities that are necessary for that to be an independent standalone facility, the reconfiguration and development of the radiology department. And I want to look at what more is appropriate for hospitals like Ennis and Nenagh. Let me just give another example. In Bantry, for example, we've developed very significant endoscopy services, 2 really, really excellent top-class suites for endoscopy for meeting the needs of the people locally, both in West Cork and in South Kerry. Just last week, we appointed an extra 3 consultants there, 2 on the endoscopy side and 1 geriatrician, again, to deliver services in what is really an excellent Model 2 hospital in West Cork. We want more services delivered locally, and that is what I'm saying. That is what I see the standard for Ennis and Nenagh to be for the future. What I am asking for from the project board, which will comprise both national and regional clinical and management representatives and others, is to develop that plan for me for a vision for the region for the future. So of course that includes investment in Ennis and Nenagh, and of course that includes a reconsideration of how we deliver acute services across Limerick. So clearly now we will have the opportunity to have 2 hospital campuses, 2 acute hospital campuses between Dooradoyle and between the new site. Of course we are already progressing what was described as option A under the HIQA report, with the progression of the additional 96-bed block, which is well underway, the enabling works having been completed. And we expect that to continue at pace as we do the other bed development projects, which again are in the process of development and planning, and which we expect to be delivered on the Dooradoyle site. The strategic difference that this new site gives us now is to think about, with a site that's even larger than Dooradoyle, what do we want this vision to be in 5 years, in 10 years, but ultimately in 30 years? And how are we going to have a development control plan, not just for a single site, as we might often have historically thought about it, but a development control plan for the whole region in one go, and how we would get and sequence that development over 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and what ultimately is going to be the vision for the region. Certainly as Minister for Health, I observe the centralisation and the research centralisation of acute services and specialist services in centres of excellence. I look around Limerick as a public representative, I look around the Midwest as a public representative, and what I see is global expertise in pharmaceuticals, global expertise in medical devices, global expertise in life sciences, and a hugely respected research university, all in the same space. And now the opportunity for not one but 2 acute hospital campuses delivering services for the people of this region. Ultimately, I see 30 years from now patients from across the Midwest participating in clinical trials for the most advanced oncology drugs because of the particular juxtaposition of services, of hospital services, of research, of a research institute, and of the ecosystem of medical devices, pharmaceuticals and life sciences that happens to be in this region already. This is a really serious development, not just for the social fabric of the Midwest, but for the economy of the Midwest, for growth in terms of jobs, for supporting the planning framework, which is to push development out of Dublin and to the west of the country, to push development to Limerick and to the Midwest, not just as we've seen economically and in terms of investment by companies, both indigenous and foreign, but by also supporting that with the social fabric and with the vision for the future of the Midwest, not just being the place that meets its people's needs and beyond in terms of healthcare, but also is driving research, driving innovation and driving opportunity. And that is the thinking that I want to bring now. That is the sort of the long stride thinking that I want to bring to the opportunity that this site gives us for the future.
Minister, I guess that all sounds very good. What ordinary people want to know is how many beds are coming into the region, a second ED, the timeline on this and the costings.
All of that is for the Development Control Board. What I've done is we have acquired this site. It's a really significant site, and it would be wrong of me to tell you that we have also the plan in perpetuity for that. So what we need to do is we have the site, and now we need to develop that. Of course, it's already the case that we have 96 new beds in Limerick. Of course, it's already the case that we have the other 96 in development, the 48 in Ennis, the 24 replacement and 24 new in Nenagh. All of that is in the capital plan already, and all of that is in development. What we need to be thinking about now is not the next 3 months, but the next 30 years, and how we're going to meet the needs of the region in that.
How much did the land cost?
About 14 million.
14. Okay. And is the plan to, this is option B, is the hope, I guess, rather than the plan, that it'll evolve into option C?
I always said that I would take a blended approach and essentially embrace all 3 options. And I do believe that this is the opportunity to do everything, that this site gives us that optionality for the future. That is the very clear direction that is in my mind, where we will be able to deliver both option B and ultimately option C and potentially beyond when you consider what's possible with this site. I think we will meet all of the needs given the strategic position, the strategic nature and the scale of the site and how it links with the other pieces of infrastructure in the region.
Minister, we were in the Bantry Hospital yesterday, built in 2 years, and an impressive facility. When you hear of reports and preparations, you get the heebies here because it can sometimes take ages. You know, are we looking at 2 years, 3 years, 5 years for diggers to be on the ground, first of all, and for a new hospital to be on the ground in Limerick?
So I hear what you're saying in respect of time, but you'll recall that the HIQA report was published on the 30th of September, and that in the period, the months afterwards, I brought a memo to government to recommend that we would go with all 3 options, not 1, not 2, all 3. And it's now another 6 weeks or 8 weeks later, and we've acquired the site. So on this occasion, I think we've been rather pacey in relation to acquiring what is going to be a strategic site for the next 30 years. What we need now is to appoint the project board and to develop a plan for the whole region. If you'll forgive me, and if the people of Limerick will forgive me, we are not concentrated just on this site. We are concentrated on the region. I am as concerned about the people in West Clare as I am about the people in Limerick City. I am as concerned about the people across North Tipperary as I am the people of Limerick City. We are all in one region together, and we need to develop this site and this region with that thinking, and that is going to take us a number of months to do that properly. You don't want us to do that in a casual sort of way. But I do expect the project board to come back to me. I think it's realistic in the autumn, and for me to bring a plan to government and to the region and to the public representatives and to the people of the region about how we're going to deliver services in the short, medium and long term, and what our vision for that is.
Minister, great announcement today for Limerick. I suppose, were there, how many sites are actually on the shortlist in Limerick for this development, and how many jobs, both temporary and permanent, do you foresee being created?
Well, I won't speak to the first question because that would be commercially sensitive and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to do that. And again, I can't speak to the number of jobs because we have to look at the scale of the project and what's possible. But it's very clear, but it wouldn't be honest of me to do that. I think what we need to see is, what you're looking at is a major campus that is larger than the existing Duradoyle site. There is obviously enormous opportunity both for healthcare recruitment ultimately, for construction recruitment, and what I'm saying about the juxtaposition of this facility vis-a-vis medical school, research institutes and all of the other pieces around it. This is a major economic opportunity to drive innovation and for the Midwest to be the centre of driving innovation at a totally different scale. And that is what I'm up for here. If people bring me opportunities to drive innovation in this region through this project board, through this vision, that's what we're up for here. So I want to hear from everybody in relation to that. How are we going to use this, not just to deliver for the social fabric of the Midwest, but to drive innovation and to make Limerick and the Midwest the centre of that.
In terms of government investment, how much are we looking at?
But again, I mean, it's not honest for me to speak to a project that hasn't been designed. What we've done is we've acquired the strategic site and a major site at that. So my challenge is not that piece. My challenge is to get to the most ambitious proposal possible. And then I will create a very large headache for other people when I bring that in a designed way, in a planned way and shovel ready, and be looking and agitating. And I would expect everybody here behind me to agitate in the same way to make sure that where there is a funding question, that it is met by central government. My obligation in the first instance is to acquire the site, develop it ambitiously, and I mean ambitiously, and then make that funding demand.
Minister, is there a plan for housing? I mean, there's obviously a housing crisis still in the country, and if you're building this big hospital site, is there a plan already in place, or are you coming up with a plan to attract nurses and doctors back to staff this facility? And is there a plan included for housing for those staff? So
I think that will be a major part of how we reflect on this as a region. I'm conscious that I'm standing here in front of the Cabinet Ministers, Kieran O'Donnell, Patrick O'Donovan, John Moran, all of the representatives for this region, all of the councillors here for the region, Marie Breen, all of the councillors here for the region who are as concerned about that as I am. And that will be part of what everybody will think of together as they develop this plan for the region. But if you'll forgive me as Minister for Health, my particular concern is what is the ambition for health, and that includes how people are recruited and where they live. But I know that that's going to be of concern to all of the public representatives that stand here beside me to deliver this for the region.
Minister, we know the UHL site is already overcrowded. If this new site is so big, is there a possibility the maternity hospital could be moved there instead?
There's every possibility about how we think about that for the future. How do we best deliver services across two sites, including maternity services? But there may be other services where a hospital is delivered over two sites. For example, what can we, and I think this is a really important question for the region, what can we decant and move appropriately locally to Ennis and Nenagh? What can and should be moved to the outpatient facilities? For example, Patrick O'Donovan and I visited one in Newcastle West where there's urology outpatient services being delivered and consultants delivering services there. How do we think about that for the future? Is it the case that you need two hospitals replicating each other, or should you, for example, have cardiology and urology over there and oncology over here? That is a question for Catherine Peters and her vision for the future, and she's done a fantastic job in this region, and Ian Carter, who have done a fantastic job in the organisation of services and clinical services here here. So those are open questions, and that's exactly the kind of thinking that I want to hear back from the clinicians, from Catherine, from Terry Hennessy, from Ian Carter. That's exactly what I want to hear back in relation to how do we best think about this. Let's not replicate the things that we've seen before. This is the first opportunity in Ireland where we really have the opportunity in a greenfield way, excuse the pun, to develop actual healthcare services in the most futuristic, intelligent, balanced way we possibly can for a region. There's no historical accident here. There's no, voluntary hospital that grew up from religious services or any of those things. This is a completely clean page, and how would we do it in the best way? What's the international thinking we're going to bring to that process? How are we going to look at how hospital and acute services are delivered in other countries? Because they're not all on one congested site. They're considered differently, and that's our opportunity here.
And just on the acute, that's probably the other big question for people. When might they see a second emergency department? Is this part of that?
This is part of that. This is all part of this. Everything is on the table here because of the nature of the site that we've acquired. Everything is on the table, and it is for the project board to deliver that thinking to me, and for me to reflect on that and take it forward.
So will there be or will there not be another emergency department in the region?
Again, that is what is included in option C. There is no question, but that emergency services have to be expanded here. I do want to pay particular compliment to Catherine and Ian on what they have done in UHL over the past year. This morning there are 47 patients on trolleys in Limerick. That's 20 less than this day last year. That is a significant improvement, and that is in the context of very considerably increased presentations to UHL. I'm absolutely, let me say it in the opposite way, I'm open to everything. This is an absolutely blank page, and what I want to do is meet the needs of the people of the region, and that includes more access in terms of urgent and emergency care, both in terms of primary care, both in terms of GPs, and indeed in terms of hospital care. So everything is on the table.
Is it your preference to have two Model 4 hospitals within 10 minutes of each other?
That's not impossible, but that again depends on what is brought to me by the project board. You can clearly see that that's a possibility for the future.
Plan or option B there in the HIQA report, just to call it the extension of the UL Hospital campus to include a second site in close proximity under shared governance. Has that now effectively been rewritten?
Well, no, because this is a site in close proximity and it would be under shared governance. What I think this does, though, is allows us to go very considerably beyond the thinking of the HIQA report. I mean, this is HIQA BC+, and I don't think it's limited in any way, particularly when you look at the scale of the site. It goes beyond the thinking of, an option C, which HIQA said an option C, a Model 3 hospital in due course. They set a very long time frame from that. We've truncated all of that. And we've just gone and bought a site that gives us option B, option C and C+ very considerably, and allows us to push ahead in a much more ambitious way, if you'll forgive me, than the HIQA report, which was being asked to look at how you deal with urgent and emergency care. What we're saying is, thank you very much. And now we'd like to go further. And what we'd like to do is have a whole regional plan for healthcare that not just meets the social needs of the people of this region, but also has the opportunity to act as an economic driver for the region as well.
The Friends of Ennis Hospital have claimed that the announcement, this announcement basically overlooks Clare, and that roughly 50,000 people are living outside an hour of UHL. Even with this new plan, there's still going to be maybe slightly less travel time. Have you any concerns in relation to that?
I have great concerns for the people of Clare, Tipperary, Limerick and the whole region. I mean, that's what we're trying. That's why we're trying to be so aggressively ambitious in the acquisition of this site and in our open thinking about what's possible for the future. What I do want to see in Ennis is, and in particular, is delivery of more services. I've already given direction in relation to that in the capital plan. I am describing what I have already given direction in relation to the delivery of much better local services so that people don't have to travel. And I am absolutely open to how we can continue to do more. And I've given the example of Bantry, for example, that I believe is moving ahead at pace in a similar way to the way I think Ennis can and should be for the future. So the people of Clare are central to our thinking in relation to how we develop these services for the Midwest. And again, I hope that there will be patients in Clare who will be participating in the clinical trials of the future. I meet groups with rare diseases, I meet groups in cancer, I meet groups of all of these different groups, and they all have a shared need for healthcare for the future, and that's what we're trying to deliver here for everybody in the region.
The HIQA in the Health Committee, they spoke there about the need of critical analysis before these decisions would be made. I presume, has that been undertaken?
I would think so. Like, not only did we receive the HIQA report, I had a very, very good engagement with public representatives here from the whole region, led by my good colleague Joe Cooney, from all the different parties, all of the different areas included in the Midwest. I had a very, very good engagement. I believe 2 engagements with John Wall and the Patient Council, who gave me their perspectives, and I know gave it to the public representatives as well separately. I've had a very good engagement with the clinical community, Terry Hennessy, with Sandra, with Ian, with Catherine. So we've had very many different engagements. I've brought my initial thinking to Cabinet, which was to embrace all of the different options. And we will take the same input and the same clinical, public representative and all of the different and patient-led input into how we develop services now, recognising the acquisition of this new site.